We're 3 weeks into this new season of training and things are going not so bad. In the first episode, we went through the assessments, went through the goals, and then I invited you to join me and follow the same program that I'm going to be using for the next 12 weeks. But one thing that I didn't get to cover is the philosophy behind the training and how I'm going to go about implementing it. I wanted to share with you a video that I watched the other day by Carl Bogus. I don't know his full name, but he's a great channel on YouTube, and I think some of his videos are extremely insightful. And one of the comments in a recent one he said was, set your goals around consistency, not outcomes. And the program is really designed with this in mind and kind of removing barriers to being able to do it. It's relatively low on time. We're talking 35 to 45 minutes, 4 times per week, which is lower volume, and it means that you can do it in conjunction with other training, other sports, other hobbies, whatever it is that you have. It's also pretty minimal on the equipment. It certainly doesn't need a gym. So I wanted to share with you kind of the equipment that I've taken with me on this trip, because over the years, it's kind of the conclusion that I've come to of like, what's the minimum amount of equipment that I need that's not going to limit me from doing any exercises, but it's just going to support like pretty much all of my strength, flexibility, bodyweight goals. The only piece of equipment that Coach Molly needs is a tennis ball. So in here we have the portable gym. So there's a little bit more than the essentials here. I'm going to group this in essentials and then some nice to haves. So on the essential side of things, first up, we've got the rings. The rings enables you to train basically pulling exercises anywhere. So pull-ups, rows, but also enables you to do pushing movements like dips or push-ups quite effectively, as well as accessory movements like rotator cuff drills, arms drills, even lower body training if you really want to. Realistically, the rings, if you had one piece of equipment to choose from, this would be the piece. These rings are actually my own personal ones that I sell. They are extra chunky, which I quite like because I've got big hands, and they've got numbered straps just to make life easier for aligning. Next, we've got dumbbells. These really fill in the blanks for a lot of stuff. Yes, we can use them for accessory training. So we've got curls, rotator cuff work, fantastic. But really they're here for lower body training. Adding weight to lower body movements just makes the training more effective and gives us much more options without limiting us to what body weight and gravity can do. These are two 15-kilo dumbbells that are adjustable, so they can go from 1.5 to 15 kilos, or I can have 24 kilos on one dumbbell. And then to go with this, we've got the weight belt, which basically enables us to bring load. Weighted bodyweight training is super, super effective. You can take the basics and they can be extremely valuable up until a very advanced level by adding load. Along with the weights, I've also got some ankle weights. Aren't really essential to have. It was just an easy way for me to add an extra 5 kilograms of weight, and also quite useful for some flexibility and core related stuff. Next, we have resistance bands. These are kind of great for warming up, but I also like them for adjusting load on exercises, actually more often than not to reduce the weight of an exercise as opposed to adding load. I don't use the big boy too much, mostly just the little ones, but again, useful, and if you don't have weights, even more useful. Finally, on the flexibility front, we've got a mat and some yoga blocks. These are really a must. The yoga mat just makes actually performing flexibility work on the floor much, much more tolerable, especially if you've got a couch stretch and just want to protect knees and painful areas. So yoga blocks are great for bridging gaps on exercises, for helping you feel more comfortable, for providing targets. Like, they've got so many uses. So these are the essential pieces of equipment. I use these every single time I train, and arguably you don't need any more. But before we get into the extras, I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone who did watch and join in on that first video. It was great to hear from everyone in the comments. And on that same day, I also managed to hit 1 million subscribers on the channel, which is just something I never even imagined happening. So I just want to say a massive thank you. And again, looking forward to this series continuing. The rest of the stuff is a little bit more random and just kind of nice to have. First, we've got fat grips. They kind of in the name as to what they do. They just make the grips around your dumbbells fatter, challenges the grip a little bit more. I've heard people like Poliquin talk about how this is a good way to manage imbalances between sides and train grip and a few other things. Ultimately, I think it feels nice, but Indian clubs is something that I don't utilize as much as I should. It introduces quite a nice rotational spiral way of training into what otherwise is often quite linear. They're a great warm-up, they're a great daily, they're a nice sort of like meditative thing to do as well. There's a little bit of technical element. I just like to mess around with these. Likewise, I also brought some juggling balls. Again, this is just more to mess around. It's got a little bit of a neurological element. I sometimes use it as a warm-up. I use it as a break from work. It's a very accessible skill if you're prepared to just be frustrated for a short period of time, and it's quite fun to do. On the very unnecessary side of things, I've got some handstand blocks. These just change the grip. I like them a lot for one-arm handstand training, and also if your wrists are feeling particularly overused, they can take a little bit of that load off. Finishing up, we've got some soft tissue stuff. So I've got a peanut, which is basically 2 lacrosse balls put together. I've got a lacrosse ball by itself, and I've got a voodoo floss band. Sometimes it just feels good to do some soft tissue work, and I like to have the option available to me. Alternatively, I just steal Molly's equipment, which is the tennis ball. And finally, we have the humble stick, which I stole off a spade somewhere en route. Nothing specific here, but one of those ones that comes in more useful than you'd think. So obviously there are some drawbacks to this, being that 30 kilos in total isn't necessary enough for lower body training. Like, in reality, would I rather be able to just do some back squats or do some deadlifts? Even back extensions. You can get so much done with so much fewer exercises, especially for lower body training, that when you're using less weights, you kind of just have to get a little bit creative and accept that there's a slight trade-off. On a note of being creative, regardless of having this equipment, I've always had to come up with slight tweaks and changes for exercises throughout this trip. Just from basic stuff, like trying to find something to do dips on, or trying to anchor the feet to perform Nordic curls. Like, it's just not always going to be perfect. And even within a gym setting, you might need to experiment with a few different ways of setting things up to find what works for you. But I'd love to hear kind of what your essentials are. Like, what makes up your gym equipment? Do you just go to the gym? Do you train outside? Do you train at home? Let me know in the comment section down below. Sometimes I think the hardest part of training is trying to figure out like your own limitations. It's easy to let kind of your own bias and an ego get in the way of like, I want to do these exercises because they look good or they make me look good. So by having a general program, it almost gives you a bit of a blank slate, and we can just look and see at the improvements across the board. Like, okay, so chin-ups for me improved really easily. I went from 8 reps without any weight, and now I'm doing 10 kilos for 8 reps. That's faster than normal progression, indicates to me that I've got, you know, a lot of potential there. Whereas maybe like the handstand push-up stuff has stayed pretty much the same throughout the past few weeks. Rather than trying to force things to push and do more every single session, I'm going to focus more on my form, my technique, how the exercise feels. Nice general approach, and then gives you an idea of where maybe you need to work on, because we're all different. On that note, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Have a strong week. Peace.